Okay, I'm going to answer the question for you of how to bake a tart shell blind. We're going to use the pâte brisée that we made in this class, and we're going to use a false bottom fluted rectangular flan pan, or tart pan, or quiche pan, or however you want to call it. So we're going to get this rolled out with a little bit of flour. We're going to line it with some paper and put some rock salt in it. We're going to bake it until it's completely cooked. Then later, after it's cooled, we're going to take it out. I'm going to show you how to fill it with either a combination of pastry cream or chocolate ganache, and then fruit, and then how to glaze it and decorate it a little bit, okay? Let's get this rolled out and baking in the oven first, okay? So we're going to lubricate the table and the dough with a little bit of flour. And I'm going to use my tapered rolling pin because I love this thing. It offers that control of the thickness and making it thick or thin in whatever individual spot you want to apply the pressure at, see? Remember, you don't want to stretch the dough. That's why you see me moving it around. And the flour that's being used as a lubrication, I use the term lubrication so that the dough slides on the table or the board you're rolling it on instead of sticking to it and then you're stretching it, okay? So we want to get this somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch thick. Which is right where it's at right now. Okay, now we're going to anchor it into this pan by using the John method here, which is doing it twice. First, getting it up against the shell initially. Pressing it in there to make sure it's in the corner of the shell. Okay, now I'm going to overlap a little bit so I have extra dough here so that I can force this and make the dough slightly above the rim, the top of the tart pan. So we actually go around, just to get the dough in, we go around 3 times. This is the second time. Now we can do this if we want to cut it off. And now we're going to go around this a 3rd time to take this extra dough that you see hanging there and bring it up on the sides to make this slightly elevated above the top of the flan pan. Which you don't have to do. It's a habit of mine because I like to know that if it recedes slightly during the baking process, it doesn't fall below this. This spot here is a little bit thin, so I'm going to put a little patch on there. See there? Okay, there you have it. It's in the shell. It looks good to me. And we're going to prick it with a fork. Prevent it from swelling during the baking process. Got a fair amount of holes there. Now I need a piece of paper. I have it right here. I'll be right back. And I need a half sheet pan. Richard? Okay, so you put your paper on there and pour your rock salt in there. This is the pie weights that we're using. These are not technical pie weights, but these work very well. Even the rock salt even holds the heat, and that actually helps cook the tart shell. Thank you. So pack this in, fill it up all the way. This prevents the sides from collapsing and keeps the shape of the shell during the baking process. Now, we don't need this little extra over here. We're going to rip this off. And we're going to bake this at 400 degrees. Now, we're going to bake this in 2 stages. First, let me get it in the oven while it's still a little bit cold. 400 degrees. We're going to bake it in 2 stages. What I mean by that is we're going to bake it until it's set in that pan. Then we're going to take the rock salt out and the paper, and now that it's formed and partially baked, it's not going to collapse on you now. Then we're going to put the shell back in the oven to finish it off, because this particular shell needs to be completely cooked. I'm showing you how that version of this kind of tart is made, which is called 2 things. It's a baking the shell blind, and then what they call Tart Bourdaloue, which means a tart that's baked blind and then filled with fruits and finished off, okay? So I'll be back when that's done, and we'll take the rock salt off and finish it off together in probably 20 minutes or so, okay? I'll be back then. Okay, the pâte brisée tart shell is set. Just took it out of the oven. I gave it a couple of minutes to cool before I brought you into this. We're going to get the rock salt out of this. You see, we have brown set pastry there. You want to be careful about getting this rock salt out of here so you don't spill it all over the place, because the paper has a tendency to break up on you. I'll tell you what, let me do this here. Let me scoop some of this out of here so it's not so heavy, so I don't spill it all over. The round ones are a little easier to get out than these rectangles. That should be enough. There we go. Okay, let's take a closer look at this shell now. You see, come on down here. This shell is starting to brown right here. This shell is pretty close right now. You know what? I'm not even going to continue to bake this shell. I think it's baked enough. And this shell should be, yep, see, it slides right out. Look. This shell is ready to fill when it's cool. You don't want to bake it too much because you'll turn it into a crumbly crust when you're trying to cut it later, okay? So we're going to set this off to the side. Let it cool, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to fill it and decorate it and glaze it. So we'll see you in about 15-20 minutes. Okay, how to fill this baked blind pâte brisée tart shell. It's fully cooled off now, and it's ready to be filled. We're going to fill this one with a combination of a little bit of chocolate, ganache, spread on the bottom. Then we're going to take the pastry cream that was made in this class, and this is the exact same pastry cream, the same lesson that was made for this class, and I'm taking the plastic off of that, and we're going to adjust the texture of the pastry cream, and I have some Grand Marnier here we're going to add to it for a little bit of flavor with the chocolate. Now, see, it's a little bit tight now, you see? And I'm going to loosen it up Put a little bit of heavy cream. It's been sitting overnight in the refrigerator. And we're going to whip it smooth again, like it was when it came out of the pot. Let's put the Grand Marnier in it now as part of the liquid. Got about almost, I got 1 ounce to 3/4, possibly 2 ounces. I'm going to make sure we can taste it, you know. Okay, let's get a taste in there. More Grand Marnier. I want to make sure that this comes across being diluted in each bite by the chocolate, the fruit, and the glaze in the crust. Okay, I'm sure that's enough. Okay, let's put that aside. Now, let's put a little bit of the chocolate ganache in the bottom of the shell. We're not going to overload it with chocolate like we may have with the chocolate fruit strip. We can put a lot more chocolate in it than this. We're just going to give it a little bit in the bottom. A little tiny boost. See, these are what I call restaurant desserts, not to be confused with pastry shop desserts. Pastry shop desserts, you kind of have to be a pastry chef to make and decorate and stack and layer. And these are more about assembling a dessert, okay? So now we're going to take some of the Grand Marnier pastry cream. See, this is mainly pastry cream filling, not chocolate. We'll put a little bit of this over the chocolate. Okay. Now we're going to fill it up with the fruit. Let's give them kiwi, raspberry, blueberry, strawberry. That's all we're going to use. And again, we're going to lay them out in portions in this tart shell. We're going to do the banana. Let's do the raspberry in here first. I'm just going to line them up along the edge. And I have apricot glaze to glaze this one. We've been using red currant jelly on the other tarts today so far, but it's time for a little apricot. That you may have a little harder time finding in the regular retail, quote, civilian store. Okay, let's get the banana on there. This is being done in real time right across the board, which is good for you because you get a real good idea how long it takes to assemble the entire tart and the fruit. Okay, so let's take a little bit of banana and decide where a portion's at. There's a portion. Putting the bananas in a little bit on an angle, coming down this way. Doesn't require special skill to do it. It's just need to know how to organize and manage the assembly of these things a little bit more than the cooking process. I think if you watch these videos, you'll notice that there's nothing really sophisticated in terms of the skill other than the somewhat of a science of assembling this stuff. Okay, now let's throw a slice of kiwi on. Well, let's do this here. Let's cut these slices of kiwi in half because they're too big for the size of this tart. And we'll just give them twice as many pieces on each order, see? We'll give them a couple of slices there. And this is the kind of adjustment that you need to make with your fruit or whatever it is you're using so that it fits appropriately in terms of its size into the individual portion that we're making here, see? Half, half. I'm going to actually put this on a plate for you also. Now we're going to fill this hole in with the blueberries here. Nice looking fresh tart. The most important part I want to get across to you is that you can do this. This is not that complex. I may have made a few hundred of these in my life, but the first one I made looked pretty good, I got to tell you right now. Alright, so now let's hit it with some of the apricot glaze, which I have right here. And I'm going to spoon some of it first. Right on the banana. See, this one's a little bit, this apricot is what makes it different than the red currant, you know, or the strawberry or raspberry type glaze. This is that it has a different color and, of course, a different taste. I'm going to spoon the lion's share of this on, and then we'll dab on some on the parts that I may have missed by the spoon. See? That way the whole thing is kind of covered. Looks good. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, that's done. Now, let's get it out of the shell. Making sure we don't drop it on the floor in the process. And let's get a plate up here and serve somebody some tart. Let's cut it right down the middle here. The nice shortbread pastry, the pâte de brisée, and this is again, another trick with the whipped cream. You'll notice how part of that crust broke off right here, so boom, it's not broke off anymore. I glued it on with some whipped cream. And let's touch this up like this. And let's put a little bit of vanilla sauce on this plate. Of course, you could put raspberry sauce, chocolate sauce on here. And let's dust it with a little sugar. And you got yourself a really nice, fresh, homemade dessert. This is very French, but very simple. There you have it. Enjoy it. We're definitely going to eat this piece. As soon as that camera goes off, you have a great time with this. Thank you.